سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم تسليما كثيرا إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. So dear brothers and sisters, today, tomorrow will be my last program here after Taraweeh. So today, since I've been saying for quite a few days, if you have any questions, and then in the weekend we didn't do any questions, but today I've got a topic, but I'll open it up for questions first, give an opportunity if anybody has any questions, because I could be speaking to you and talking to you about things I think are important, and then there may be something that's very important for you that you want addressed. So today we have an opportunity to discuss something that you may have on your mind. If I don't know the answer, then I'll tell you so, or inshallah we'll discuss it. And if you don't have a question, then I'll talk about what I want to speak about. So the floor is yours. If you have a question or a topic you'd like to discuss, then let me know, please. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So I don't, you see, every country, while in the West it's kind of become accepted, but every country has different tolerance levels and then different stigma levels. In some countries it's so sensitive that you could end up losing your job or something. In other countries, there are two views, and you can actually speak. I'm not too 100%. I'm not too sure about how the Australian landscape is. However, the one thing which is very important is that you make a distinction between the individual and criticizing a person. I think this is where maybe the legal aspect and the kind of the legal aspect of it may come into play. Is that you avoid characterizing anybody as evil or bad or whatever, but we say that the act itself is considered to be reprehensible within Islam. So we say in Islam, this is what is the belief, this is what the understanding is, and this is basically what the Islamic position is. There are people who are struggling with this for whatever reason. We're not going to go into reasons because there's various different ideas that are being pushed in terms of where this actually comes from. Let's not debate that right now or discuss that right now. But I think one thing very clear is that there's some people who have this as a challenge for whatever reason, and they have inclination. They have a certain inclination. In Islam, our position is that if there's somebody who's struggling with this, and I'm assuming people have struggled with this throughout history, somebody or the other will have struggled. However, that struggle in itself is just like anybody else has a struggle with different vices, different issues, and you're not sinful for that struggle, because that's something which, if you can't help for whatever reason, then you struggle with that, and you are actually rewarded for struggling against it, and you're rewarded for the patience, because there's people with various different struggles. They want to have other things beyond what is theirs, you could say. There's children here, so extramarital relationships, premarital relationships, all of that is haram. Alcohol, there may be somebody who may have had, before converting to Islam, or even within Islam, they may have had indulged in alcohol or drugs or something else which is haram, and now they've become practicing and they feel an inclination towards it. They have to resist. They have to stop themselves. They get rewarded for stopping themselves. So, in Islam, the act of it is considered to be reprehensible and not permissible at all, and unlawful. In terms of relationship, there are people out there, subhanallah, who don't do everything that we would accept, or even Christianity would accept. For example, extramarital or premarital relationships, zina, that's not allowed either. How do we treat those kind of people? So we have to treat everybody in a civil fashion, in a decent fashion, in a professional fashion, in that sense. But we do not accept the act to be something permissible in our faith at all. That's something that we can't accept and compromise with. So that's the basic broad outline and the kind of approach to it. Then of course there'll be probably specific scenarios that might be a bit more complicated than that, but that's the broad understanding of it. Sorry, there were two hands up there. I'd like to take them first and then I'll come on to this side. There's somebody here that had an or maybe that's where I was looking, that's why. Sorry?
A supplementary question to that topic. How do you deal with the children, like young children, being taught about this thing in primary?
That I don't know. That, in England, what we have is that we've encouraged that there's several individuals, at least one or two good prominent individuals, they're training individuals to go into different communities, into their masjids and so on, and teach the parents and sometimes the children, or at least the parents, to teach the children. This is something, as I mentioned a few days ago, you have to have an open discussion at home about these things, because it's out there now. There's no hiding it. It's not a taboo subject that nobody can speak about, so it needs to be spoken about so that we can try to prepare our children with a understanding. Again, I don't know how bad it is here, but in England it is so difficult that if your children are seen to insult somebody or say something bad about that. There was a story about a Christian school where literally was having a discussion, and the teacher or the tutor asked the child, "What's your opinion about it?" And they said that I think it's I forget the word they use, something from the Bible or something. And that child was then excluded from class. So the mother is saying, you ask the child for the answer, you literally push the child for an answer. It's supposed to be an open child. So even though it's the Bible position that they espoused, they said there could be certain people like that in the class who might feel offended by that. So you can't even say that. That's not necessarily the legal position as such, because every teacher will interpret that differently. So again, I don't know if it's that crazy in Australia, all right? And the thing is that I don't want to belabor this point because I don't know, so I can't guide you any more than I have. But for children, what they're doing is they're trying to teach them the right. Because if we don't, they're gonna, as I said, you can pull your children out of school when such topics are being taught, but that's if you don't do a follow-up with that, if you don't teach them your position, then they'll just learn everything from their friends the next day. So that's second-hand information, probably with some salt and pepper or something else, masala with it. So that's not worth it as well. That's why the parents have to be abreast of this issue. There are some good documents out there. Maybe I'll forward some documents to the management to forward out to your group or whatever it is, that discuss everything on a very academic level to explain from a scientific perspective and so on. And then after that, the madrasas, the teachers, they can be dealing with this issue. But ultimately, the parents are going to have to deal with this issue to make it very, very clear what our position is, but in a way that they can do it professionally and not get themselves into more trouble. And then we just have to make lots of dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to overcome this somehow.
What is the experience in London or your area of England for attracting converts or reverts? Just explain to us what's going on, and is there any formal classes or formal organisation or anything like that?
So in England there's a number of organizations and then individuals who are doing da'wah to non-Muslims, like actively, professionally, formally. And they have workshops that you can actually attend to see how da'wah is done, because it's not easy to do da'wah for a lot of people. If you're a very bold person, very bold about their faith, and you wear your faith on your sleeve, and even those people who wear their faith on their sleeve in the sense that they dress and actively as Muslims, they find it very difficult to engage somebody else, because a lot of the time what we lack is an access point or common ground. right? What you might have, a lot of us don't have, because it's still immigrant and older immigrant community, if we say it that way, right? So it's very difficult to understand cultures, and you have to kind of go beyond the cultural aspects to talk about humanity, religion, spirituality, and the heart. And that's sometimes very difficult to discuss. So there's a number of organizations like IERA, I-E-R-A, Hamza Zotsis and these other brothers. They're doing a good job. We need a lot more of that to be done. I think on a personal level for anybody and everybody is that regardless of where you come from and how you dress and what you eat and so on, one of the minimal and best forms of da'wah is our akhlaq and the way we deal with things. That plays a massive role. Even if you can't actively do da'wah, that is the active, the way you're walking around and the way you might open a door for somebody. You might push something harmful off the road or off your path. There's multiple occasions like this. Assisting people, I mean, that just gets to the heart. I mean, COVID was a massive icebreaker in many communities because the Muslims just came out and fed so many people in lots of countries in the world, because that's just what our faith said. And it was quite amazing how people just took to that and understood. For example, if you have been undercharged for a product in a supermarket, so you walk out and then you suddenly see that one product is not on the bill, it's not being charged for, they missed it somehow, it was left in the cart or something. You go back and you say, you didn't charge for this. There's various ways of justifying, oh, they didn't charge it, maybe it was buy one get one free or whatever. You go back. Now what happens sometimes is that the person at the cashiers, they're just frustrated or busy, and they're like, it's okay, you can take it. You have to ask, would your manager approve this? Is this something you have discretion to do, or are you just saying it? It's just one product for them. So then maybe you can just slip in the fact that I have to answer for this with my God. That is very, very powerful. God is very powerful. The concept that somebody has a concept of God, which is a higher source that people call out to, that allows them to be conscious of these things. That's very, very, very important. A lot of countries, I mean, not a lot of countries, but some countries in Europe, they turned against the Muslims because the Muslims that went there, they started taking advantage of the free system, the welfare system, by hook or crook. So initially people were welcoming, oh, okay, let's have some new people in there, we're fine with diverse, not everybody's racist, right? However, they saw that these people, when they found that there's some free giving outs, which is not found in, the countries they came from, hook or crook, they started to go for it. And now remember the Prophet ﷺ said, "Izhadu fi dunya yuhibbuka Allah." Abstain from the dunya in terms of not loving its own, and Allah will love you. And abstain from that which is in people's hands, which means abstain from worldly possessions, and people will love you. Why would people love you if you abstain from possession? Because everybody is a competition. When it comes to worldly resources are limited, everybody's a competition. When people see you that, oh, you don't really care about worldly possession, you're not a competition. Psychologically, spiritually, whatever, you are not a competition. So that's how we need to be, and we need to really make a big effort to do this, because people are nice. I've seen Australians are decent people. The impression I had before I came to Australia in 2018 was a negative one, because we had heard those few political stories about somebody making fun of the hijab in parliament and so on. And then when I came here, I found that that was not the dominant idea. There's issues, there's always issues, there's always the few evil ones that want to cause problems or have some axe to grind somewhere. But it's very, very important. There was a community that had to escape, and they came to the Indian subcontinent many, many centuries ago. And they said, we want to move here. So the king of the time, he said, in a symbolic way. He got a cup of milk which was absolutely full to the top and he put it there to say that our country is full. India is full, right? And if anybody's been to Bombay, subhanallah, it's while countries like Egypt, when you go to Cairo, it's 20 something million people, but you go outside and it's not that crazy. Whereas India is crazy wherever you go. It's just mashallah, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, I'm assuming all similar, full to the top, saying that we don't have space here. So this representative of the community, he took some salt, he took some sugar, and he put it into it. He said, we're not here to, we're here to just sweeten the deal. So how can we sweeten the deal? This is something that we really need to, how can you and I, on an individual level, sweeten the deal for people? Be a breath of fresh air. People are hungry for spirituality because it's a material world, especially the Western world is a fully material world. Christianity is, if you're lucky, it's a once a week relief. Aside from, there's not much worship going on. They're doing relief and soup kitchens and welfare work to just keep the churches open in a lot of places, right? There's nothing like this where you pray 5 times a day, They have to keep them open, so the way they keep them open is they do a lot of other work that is just supplementary work. So people are looking for something to hold on to. They want to be able to see that guy at work who is a bit weird in the sense that goes and prays in this back room somewhere every few hours, but we notice that he doesn't backbite. He doesn't get involved in the backbiting of other colleagues. He doesn't mess around with the women. He's a guy, right? He doesn't mess around with the women. And he's really focused on his work to do it properly. Coming in on time, leaving on time, and doing the work properly. What's wrong with this guy? Like, what is it that makes him so particular? People need to be curious of that. People need to be curious of that. I know we all come from different backgrounds. And in some of our backgrounds, there's some very good things and there's some very bad akhlaq. In some of our backgrounds, there's the good and bad. You don't want to bring the bad here. You want to have a fresh start to take the best and give the best. The Prophet ﷺ said that the mu'min is like a honeybee. Whenever it eats only the pure. You don't see honeybees as opposed to flies. You don't see them near filth. You only see them near the beautiful flowers and to take the nectar. And it produces the pure honey only. It doesn't go and break anything. It doesn't go and destroy anything. It takes from all the flowers, doesn't destroy them. That's how believers, I know I'm talking very idealistically, but may Allah give us the tawfiq to be like that and our children to be like that. So then we are here to sweeten the deal and contribute and take people to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to breathe some soul into us. So we need a lot more dawah, to be honest. We need a lot more dawah, and maybe you can ask some of these brothers to come and give a dawah workshop so that you understand. And they've produced a lot of literature as well, relevant literature to that effect as well. One graduate of our madrasa, he's just got an interview recently in Islamic finance guru, Maulana Muhammad Sindhi, his name is. He's done like 1,000 shahadas. He's got a dawah center. He's done like 1,000 shahadas. We need a lot more of that. If you want sustainability and you want some acceptance, I think we need a lot more of that. Can't stay as a little minority for too long. Sorry, that was a long answer. The question is about Witr. Where does that come from? So, the Prophet ﷺ, his practice was that he would, if you look in the Shama'il books, Aisha radiallahu anha, who was with him at night, she discusses that the Prophet ﷺ usually used to read 8 rakats and then Witr. However, sometimes he read more rakats than that. Sometimes he read for the whole night, sometimes he read less. So, if you look, there's about 30, 40 hadith on this subject. It says that the Prophet ﷺ used to do 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. And then when he saw dawn was approaching, Fajr time, he would add a rak'ah and make it an odd number and then complete the prayer. So you get 2 or 3 different types of narrations. Okay, so listen carefully. You get 2 or 3 different types of narrations. Allah, in some of them, it makes it very clear that the Prophet ﷺ did 2, 2, 2, and then he did a 3 rak'ah with 1 salam. Like very clear, it says 3 rak'ah with 1 salam. That was his last one, because he says, make your witr the last prayer of the night. So that's how he would finish it off. Because the Prophet ﷺ used to like an odd number in everything. That's why we have 3 tasbihat and not 4 or 2. We have 3 or 5 or 7, for example. So that's one type of hadith. Very clear, 3 with 1 salam. Number 2, there's some hadith which say 2, 2, 2, and then after that he would add 1, and they're vague in terms of whether he added 1 separately or he added it together. They're vague. They're not clear. Then you've got some which seem to indicate that he read 1 separately. It seems to indicate he read 1 separately. So you've got 3 types of narrations. Some ulama, the Hanafis for example, they've said that there is no example in our tradition of a 1 rakat. In fact, there's a hadith which says rak'atun wahidatun butayra, that a single rak'ah is like an animal without a tail. So it's incomplete, right? There's narrations like that, and there's some others. So based on that, they said, look, these 3 types of narrations, we need to bring them together, and it looks like this first set of narrations are the clearest of them, which means that the Prophet ﷺ made it 3, and with 1 salam, after 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, he did a 3, right? So there's 8 plus 3 for tahajjud, 3 witr. And the others, because they're slightly vague, we're going to assume that this is what they did. So this is how they approach it. They say that's why don't ever do 1 rakat, it's not even valid, because we've got the other hadith which say that 1 rakats are incomplete prayer. However, the other madhabs like the Hanbalis and Shafi'is for instance, they say you can do any of these. We consider all of them to be valid. So the Prophet did this sometimes, and did this sometimes, and did this sometimes. Well, 2 types, 2 and 1, or 3 together. So for the Shafi'is and Hanbalis and Malikis, it's allowed for them to do 3 together, or 2 and 1 separately. The Hanafis say you can only do 3 together, with a sitting in between, like the way we do it. There is a hadith which says, don't make the witr like the Maghrib prayer. So some ulama later, they've understood this. I don't know if this is from the madhahib or later. I have not looked into this properly, but they've understood that, so that means don't do a sitting in between. Now that's, I think, not acceptable at all, because you have to sit at every 2 rakats. That's just, there's no example of not sitting at 2 rakats. So how is it separate from Maghrib? Well, it's separate from Maghrib in the sense that in Maghrib we don't do a qira'ah in the 3rd rak'ah. We only do Fatiha, there's no surah, and there's no kunut. Right? There's no kunut, Allahu Akbar, there's takbir, no kunut in the Maghrib prayer, so it's different. But they say, no, that's not different enough. You need to make it different by not sitting in the 2nd rakat, just go right back up in the 2nd rakat as well. So that's where you get it from, essentially. There was one masjid in South Africa where they had a significant group of Shafi'is and significant group of Hanafis. And they had agreed a long time ago that after our witr, we're going to do, in one room we're going to do witr Hanafi way, another way we're going to do Shafi'i way. And mashallah, they were happy with that. They'd finish Taraweeh together and they would go their ways and do their witr and they'd be happy and everything. This new Imam came and he said, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, this is disunity. How can you have this? This is disunity. We need to do everybody together. Now, which way you do together? You can't do both ways, right? So, if you do this way, the other guys are unhappy. If you do this way, these guys are unhappy. So, it caused the disunity. By being united, it caused them disunity. So, disunity is what you cause. Otherwise, we've got lots of things to cause disunity if you want to, right? There's so many different types of people here. If you want to cause disunity, you can do it right now in Jahili way, right? And start fighting with one another. But that's not the point. We're all human beings, man. Come on, right? If Allah's made somebody different color or different language or different food, or some people eat more nuts, some people eat more fish, so what? It is just human beings, man. You need the protein, that's all you need, isn't it? And so on. So yeah, that's the simple answer to that. Right? The thing is that when you do three together, it's allowed according to everybody.
What he did that Imam?
God knows afterwards what happened. I don't know what happened. I don't know, maybe he ran away, thought this is too much fitna or something. Yeah. My friend was an imam in that place, after, either before or afterwards, so I don't know what exactly happened afterwards. Yes?
Are we eligible to take government benefits? Are we eligible to
If
take
the government
benefits?
thinks, if your government thinks you are, then yes, you
Yeah,
are.
but the money is made from the sources which are not halal. I mean,
Allahu Akbar, money is from the sources which are haram, and the government benefits. That means we can't use the roads, we can't use the free hospital, then we're going to have lots of problems.
yeah,
What is haram, by the way, in the government?
taxpayer,
Sorry?
if the person who's paying tax, if he's working in pub or club, and he pays the money as a tax, and the government
Then gives it to you.
yeah. Sends money to us.
Yeah, I think so. Let me explain something to you. It's very interesting. This mas'ala is very interesting. Forget the tax issue now. If there's a Muslim guy who's dealing with wine or pork, that's his earning, I'm not allowed to eat from him. You understand? I'm not allowed to eat from him. Meaning that's his full income is from that. Then I can't, because it's all haram income. However, a non-Muslim who's selling pork or wine, I can take his money, no problem. Discrimination? The reason is that they're allowed in their religion to do that. According to the Christian religion, whatever it says now, they're allowed to sell pork and wine. Our books make it very clear that if a Nasrani or a Yahudi is selling, a Nasrani is selling pork or wine, his money is halal in him. It's neutralized now, it's halal for him. We can take that money. It's a really interesting point. That's one thing. Number two, there's a Muslim who's mixed income. He's got haram income and he's got some halal income. If what he is giving you, he wants to give you a gift or wants to feed you, the opinion I follow, which is I think Mufti Taqi Uthmani's opinion as well, is that if what he's giving you can be covered by whatever halal income he has. So let's say he's got $5,000 and he's giving you a $50 gift and his halal income is $1,000 at least, for example, or $50, you can take that. Because you just assume that's from the halal part of his income. Right? Otherwise you'd have big confusion. There is another view which says that if the majority of his income is halal, then it's okay. If majority is haram, then it's not okay. I don't follow because that's a much more complicated opinion to follow. It makes life a lot more difficult. So remember these two masail. Remember these two. However, if even from a non-Muslim, if their income is from a haram source according to everyone. What do you mean by haram? Like for example, their haram source is from drug dealing. Nobody considers drug dealing money halal except the drug dealers. Even them, they probably don't. I mean, even they feel guilty. All right? Do you understand that? I mean, that's not legally considered halal, is it? Or in any way, then you wouldn't be able to take that. If a non-Muslim or Muslim, they steal money, or it's from stolen goods, does anybody consider that halal except the thieves themselves? No. So that's not allowed either. You understand where we're going with this? Hopefully you can understand this. So it's really interesting that if you're in a store and you're selling something Muslim, and there's a Muslim coming with haram money according to Islam, you shouldn't accept that. But if there's a non-Muslim from something which is halal in their so-called religion or their custom, then it's okay for you to take because that's neutral money. The other thing that you have to understand also is that any money given to the government becomes neutralized because the government is a neutralizing force. So even if they receive haram money, even if they confiscate stolen money, like they confiscate or they do a drug raid and a raid on some illegal substances or what they take money, that money is halal for them because they're a neutralizing force. If they give it to you, you can have that. right? The only time it's a problem is if the government is doing haram themselves. What I mean by that is, in these countries it's more difficult because they have laws that permit what they're doing, and there's a sense of decency and legality. They do things behind the back maybe, but in countries where the government themselves are confiscating land oppressively or taking somebody's money unjustly, that wouldn't be halal. Do you understand the difference? That wouldn't be halal. And that is why usually the ulama have warned against taking gifts or award from rulers, classically speaking, because the rulers that we had were usually monarchies or titular kings or something like that, who sometimes would just take things. So their money might have been from haram, dhulm, oppressive tax, and so on. So you don't want to take from there, right? You understand? So that's a lot of stuff I mentioned today, but hopefully you understand that and you're not going to confuse that.
How would you explain the existence of God to like your non-Muslim friends or work colleagues?
How do you explain the existence of God to anybody for that matter? There's not one way to do it. There's multiple ways, and then it depends on what background they're from and what excites them, because there's multiple evidences for the existence of God. If they're scientific people, then I would explain through some kind of science, some of the scientific revelations in the Quran, for example. If they're philosophical, then I would do it through maybe a philosophical argument, the cosmological argument or something like that. If they're spiritual, I would do it through a spiritual argument. If they're just common people, then the design arguments work very well. And the design argument means that how can you have this entire beautiful, complicated, sophisticated, elaborate world without a designer? For example, anything that you see in this world, anything that you see. If I'm interested in your phone, the first thing I want to ask is what make it is. Why should I ask your make? Because there's a maker behind every phone, and that, depending on that company, tells you what kind of quality it is and so on. You have a New Balance or Under Balance, or what is that top? Huh? Under Armour, right? There's a certain thing about that designer, all right? Everything in this world is like that. So you ask somebody, why would you think this whole elaborate world just came out of nothing? Like, where did it come? People don't even think. Okay, it came from the Big Bang. Okay, good point. It came from the Big Bang. Who allowed the Big Bang to happen and for it to produce what it did? Ask them that question, right? Just look at multiple fruits, just fruits. Like if you take one segment of our creation, see who created all of these different designs? Happen randomly? For example, you have children have these little letters, magnetic letters or something, and then you make words with them, you put them together. Let's say you have a bucket full of 1,000 letters, 2,000, 10,000, give any number, right? Say 10,000 letters, big bucket of 10,000 individual letters, and we throw the bucket down. What are the chances that it's going to spell out something? Anything legible. What are the chances that it's going to spell out something? Like 1 to I don't know how many billion or something, right? So how is it possible that this world came out with such perfection? Nothing else that you relate to that you don't think who makes it. Why would you let the world be like that? That works very well for common people who understand. So that one works very well. It's called the argument from design. So it really depends. And then if the heart is open, but we do need to engage people in this discussion. The evil eye and social media. Like, can you give evil eye through social media? Well, let's put it this way. Evil eye is given over a distance, right? They don't have... We believe al-aynu haqqun. Prophet ﷺ said that. The evil eye is understood, it's given at a distance. Like, I'm not giving it to you, but I'm saying, right? is given at a distance. So I believe it could probably be given online. That means stop showing off online. Simple thing. There's people who put up their new shoes on there, they put up their new dress on there, they put up their food on there. I would never put food up on there, especially before I eat it. I'm serious, because I don't want somebody, because food is tanta, especially if you're fasting and people are fasting. Why would you do that? So I would be very careful with this stuff, because it's just redundant anyway. People don't have it, you're making them feel bad. And yes, if you're selling food, go ahead. Like your business, that's justified. But yes, stop putting stuff out there. That's what I would think. Stop putting it, because an evil eye can work. Right? If it can, you don't need physics, you don't need distances. And I think it can work. I'll give you an example. There's a guy who does this healing. Right? There's a guy who does this healing through, he calls it afia healing or something like that. It's basically trying to get your body back into the right flow. Okay? Now, I had a conversation, a Zoom meeting with him. He's a Muslim guy. He does dhikr and everything. He's in another town. So I said, okay, try it on me. He said, he said, do you have an issue? I said, well, I've got a bit of a pinched nerve here on the left-hand side. He goes, okay, stand up. And he started directing the certain energy to allow, because everybody's body has a certain rhythm and a certain circular wave that goes around properly. And when you're injured somewhere, that's blocked. So that has to be released through a certain energy. Okay? Allah. So just like you press and that releases, you put acupuncture, that releases something. This is just done through a certain energy. And I just stood there for about 2 seconds in front of this, and he's in another town and he's doing his thing. And I was, the pain went away. Right? The pain away. There's no shaitan or no jinn or anything involved. It's just, and he told me how to do it. You're just taking energy and you're just directing. They do this in Reiki. There's a Reiki. But the problem with Reiki is that they chant these weird things. So they're also directing energy, but they chant these weird, I don't know who they jinn that they're calling out to. So that's weird. This guy does it without reading anything. So I believe that these things can happen over distance. Not always necessarily. Nobody has efficacy 100%. That's up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'll give you another example. In the center of our body where the navel is, below there's a point which has to be completely below the belly button, below the navel. If it's slightly out of place, they call it, in Urdu, they call it naf, ghat. These are different words. So there's a guy who I know, he's a bone setter, a traditional bone setter. Anytime I have a pincher, the guy goes and he does a few things like this and he sorts you out. He's really good, like this guy and his 2 sons. So when the first time I went, he said, your naf is out of place. So his son is trying to push and pull, and it was painful. And he goes, you're going to have to come to my father. So then I went to his father, and I was just dreading the pain. His father just read some Surah Al-Fatiha or whatever, and he just went, and he just pushed it in, and there was no pain at all. Allah gives shifa on some people's hands. Right? It may not happen all the time, but Allah gives shifa on some people's hands. So these are all possibilities, but be very careful, because there's a lot of people out there who will get you in a big room, you to put your hand on your head, and then through the mic they'll say, choo, 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 choo. And then you'll feel really good, and he thinks that you're all gone. And then he becomes Big Peer Sahab, Chaf Chaf Peer. Right? You can check him online. All right, I think... Yes, bro. Yes. Salam. It's okay, you're loud enough, go ahead.
Just the very sensitive and never-ending issue in the Western countries is the housing.
Unfortunately, I don't have a solution for you. But I heard, what good thing I heard is that you guys have at least 2 or 3 Islamic, right, which are more expensive, but halal has never been cheap. Halal meat is more expensive than regular meat. That's what I can say for now. But we do pray that, inshallah, more and more options come up, inshallah, and more competition comes into that market. And at the end of the day, remember, I have never had a problem with spending on my son's fees for the madrasa. It's our organization called White Thread Institute. But my wife has studied there, my children have studied there. I've paid full fees, even though I'm the principal and the trustee. And we could easily make a rule that, okay, teachers' children are free. But no, because it's fi sabilillah. Anything you do fi sabilillah, whether you're going for Hajj fees and it's expensive, I know it's expensive, or you're buying halal meat because it's more expensive, or you're buying a house and it's 10,000 more and it's 5% more. Rely on Allah that fi sabilillah, I'm doing this to make you happy and you'll get barakah, inshallah. If that helps anybody, inshallah. Because it's tough. Conventional mortgage is 3% and this is 7%. I don't know what they charge. Huh? So 6%. They make it hard as well. That's another thing, because they got limited amount of money. They have more scrutiny. But we do our best. And Allah make it easy for us. One question from the sisters. We better take that. Yeah.
It is recommended that females pray at home. However, if all females do that, then there will be no mingling with the community.
It is recommended that females pray at home. However, if all females do that, then there will be no mingling with the community. Okay, carry on. I mean, there's many communities in the world where there is no women in the masjid. They still function, right? So I think it depends on what you're exactly looking for, and whatever we're looking for, maybe we can organize it somehow, inshallah. Yes, brother, last question. I need to...
What do you say about cryptocurrency?
Sorry?
Cryptocurrency?
Cryptocurrency. Be very careful. Be very careful, because something might be halal. Some of them might be halal, but not every halal should be done. For example, a few years ago, they came out with fidget spinners. Fidget spinners are halal. But if you go and buy, just because they're halal, you go and get a big container of them. Now, who's going to buy them? Do you understand? So something being halal doesn't mean it's a good investment. Be very careful, because lots of people have been burnt through cryptocurrency. Personally, I believe that some of them are halal, but many ulama still consider them to be problematic, because there's a very big gambling element to it, because it's just up and down, and that's why people usually get them. So until there's no stable cryptocurrency, because eventually it might become like that, because everything's becoming virtual, then be very, very, very careful and avoid. What is the best thing to do in a Western country? This sister's question, what is the best thing to do in a Western country? See, it depends. Some families and some communities, they have, mashallah, a decent network, so they get by, they're doing fine. They don't have to go to the masjid, they don't even feel like they have to. Some people are very isolated. For them, if the masjid has a place, then they should go. I don't think every woman should come to the masjid to pray, genuinely, because it's not practical. You have children, it's just not practical. However, for the few, or however many, need somewhere to go to just feel stronger, bismillah, you should come along. But I don't think, for the men, they have to pray in the masjid, that's their job. But for women, it's better to pray at home. But if they need medicine, meaning they need something to feel included and feel rejuvenated, then bismillah, you should come, definitely. Or you want to come for education, you should come. That's what I think it should be. If you need it, bismillah, come along. Right?